Wonder-working power in the precious...
Incredible as they seem, are not the results of mass hysteria.
You may wish to adjust the dial you are currently tuned into. The wrong station. When we were kids, Lori came up from the city in summer to stay with her cousins Aaron and Michelle, who lived down at the other end of the lake. Aaron was a year younger than me, and we were friends, so we all hung out in the same group. Lori wasn't like us, though. She was smart. She read books. She was going places. When we were really young, I thought city kids were soft, and I didn't have much time for her. Later, the summer we turned 12, she came up and everything was different. I was suddenly shy around her. She had long, straight, chestnut hair and clear blue eyes. She knew about politics and science. And for the first time, I realized I was nothing but a hick. She came up summers, but my first memory of her is in winter. Maybe she came up for Christmas, or because of some trouble at home. Her dad was always stepping out. But it was midwinter, and cold, cold, cold. We were all in snowsuits. There were ghost apples that year. You know about ghost apples? It's when there's a good hard freezing rain, and that stays cold for a long while afterward. The apples are full of sugar, so they've got a freezing point lower than water. So they die and start to rot inside the ice, and then fall out the bottom, leaving perfect shells of ice behind. Hollow apples, ice apples, ghost apples. That winter, they were growing on the feral apple trees where someone had once lived between Aaron and Michelle's. And Lori, we must have been around 6, I remember she picked one, and it was so cool and clean and perfect that she just had to eat it. It's not going to taste like anything, I told her. It's just ice. Shows what you know. Then she bit down. The ice broke. Its cold, clean shards cut up the inside of her mouth. She didn't cry out. Just looked horrified and betrayed at the broken half-apple in her hand as it filled up with her blood, turning red and ripe again. That's my first memory of Lori. People talk about country life like it moves slower than the city, but I think it's the opposite. At least where I grew up, you were old if you got married at 25, late if you were a virgin at 15. I think that's different from the city. The first time something happened with me and Lori, it was all still new to her and old to me. I treated her wrong. I was young and better looking than I am now, and I knew what to say to get what I wanted. She was still fresh and doe-eyed, and I took advantage of that. Afterward, I treated her like it didn't mean anything. The next time I saw her, I smiled like I'd beaten her at cards. I don't know why I was like that. I cared about Lori. To be honest, I couldn't imagine life without her. I was always waiting for her to arrive in summer. The whole rest of the year, I was waiting. So I don't know why I was like that. I guess I just thought it was how you were supposed to be. She didn't speak to me for 5 years. Then, one summer, she was taking a break from university and stayed into the fall. We kept running into each other in August. It was painful. She was cold. Then, in September, we both picked up work at the apple farm. We got stuck working the compost heap together one day, and I apologized. Awkwardly, clumsily. The smell of rotted apples. She heard the apology, and never said she forgave me. But she was warmer after that. I learned her order and started bringing her coffee in the mornings. There was a certain way she looked at me sometimes that made me uncomfortable. I didn't know what to make of it. It was a wide-eyed, scared sort of look. I always looked away and pretended not to see. She showed up at my place one night in December and never really left after that. I could still remember her eyes in the half-darkness of the bedroom, filled with that look I didn't understand. "What?" I'd ask her. "What is it?" "Nothing," she'd tell me. "It's nothing." I don't want to talk too much about what it was like when we were together. It was always intense. I'd put my arms around her and she'd become something different. It frightened me sometimes. The potency, the need, perfection of her. It was too much. I still believe she didn't belong up here. I kept asking, "When are you going to go back to school?" She kept asking, "Do you want me to leave?" I told her no, but I did. She was better than this place. She was smart. There was nothing for her here, me least of all. And she wasn't happy. She picked up work dog-sitting and at the grocery checkout. Her, at the checkout. It was a waste. It was flowers fed to pigs. I forgot my phone one day at the beginning of winter on my way into work. The sky was a blue-gray bruise above white hills. Heavy weather coming. That's why I was in a rush to leave. It had already started raining by the time I got to the yard. Shortly afterward, Jake came out from the office and told me Lori was on the phone. I took my gloves off and went inside. She was silent at the other end when I put the receiver to my ear. Silent and heavy like the sky. Finally, she said, "Just wanted to let you know that you left your phone behind." "Oh, thanks." My own voice sounded forced. I was worried I dropped it somewhere. There was a long silence. "Lori? You got a message from Ashley," she said. "Wants to know when she can see you again." Now the silence was on my end. I'd never been faithful to Lori. Never. I don't know why. In a small town like this, there's no way to keep a secret. Ashley worked at the yard. She was dirty and fun, and never ruined it by caring. Lori said she was pretty explicit. After a moment, I managed, "Lori, I'm so sorry." But the line was already dead. I ran out of the yard and jumped in my truck and drove. The weather was getting bad. Dark as dusk at 10 a.m., rain freezing into rippled glass on the windshield and slathering the trees with sleet. Then the sleet turned to snow, and within 5 minutes a white flannel sheet had smothered the world. I couldn't see 12 feet ahead. I drove the rest of the way home at a crawl, only staying on the road by feel, the grinding of the shoulder underneath my tires. I still don't know how I made it. By the time I got there, the door was open and the snow piled halfway across the living room. Lori was gone. Her car still parked out front, but she was gone. I called the police. By then, they couldn't send anyone out because of the whiteout. I called Aaron and Michelle. They tried to call her, but couldn't reach her phone. They jumped in their cars, but the snow was too thick and they had to turn back. I went out to the edge of the trees on my own. You couldn't even see the house from there. "Lori! Lori!" But everything was silent, heavy flakes sticking to the pine boughs. "Lori!" I went to the garage and I got a rope. I tied it to the tree closest to my house and waded into the woods, holding the other end. "Lori!" I should have just gone on. Should have dropped the rope and run reckless into the woods and gotten lost and frozen to death trying to find her. Instead, I did what you're supposed to. I went home to wait, swept out the melting snow, Made coffee. Waited. Started drinking. Around 10 next morning, the whiteout broke, fading slowly out to steady, freezing rain. Snow sloughed from the black boughs. The black boughs crystallized. I was still awake, still drinking. And the memories are muddy. I think I'd known since midnight she was dead. The cold lasted into the new year. The police questioned me several times and tore apart my home and garage. They didn't find anything. In the end, they concluded she'd gone out for a walk and been caught by the sudden whiteout. People in town talked, though. Speculated. Well, so far, I've just told you what everybody knows. Now I'm going to tell you the part that nobody's ever heard before. It was after the police finished their inquiries that I saw her for the first time. I was at home, alone. Ashley had come and gone. There were balled-up Kleenexes on the floor, and I was sitting at the end of the mattress, staring out into the darkened cave of the living room. Then, suddenly, I knew I wasn't alone. I stood up. Hello? No answer. I stepped out and turned on the living room lights. Cheap fluorescent light bulbs hummed. The whole house was empty. I wiped my face. My fingers stank of Ashley. I turned out the lights and went to the window. When I opened the blinds, Lori was standing right outside. I barely felt it as I fell back to the glass top of the coffee table and hit the floor. I closed my eyes. Sure, I was seeing things. So I kept them closed as I picked myself up, the blood running free and cool along my slashed forearm. I knew when I opened my eyes, she'd be gone. But when I finally dared to, she was still standing there, shining in the hard white floodlights. Lori. Not Lori. Just the ghost apple of her. Just the cold ice outline in the freezing rain outside. Then the motion light went out, and I groveled in the broken glass below the window. She visited again each time there was freezing rain that winter. There was a lot of freezing rain that winter. And she always came when I was drunk. I was drinking a lot that winter, too. I would hide. At the first prickling of rain on the metal roof, I'd rip the curtain shut and hide myself in one of the closets. I'd hold my breath, listening for the sound of the front door and the ring of cold feet on the floorboards. But she never came in. Then the rain would pass, and I'd feel her presence fade outside. Then after, I'd sob, as only drunks can sob. That was winter, always drunk. Aaron found me at the Red Tiger one night and broke my ribs. He knew it was all my fault. I lay in the hospital bed at 4 a.m. and listened to the falling rain. The windows double-glazed themselves with ice, but when I limped over to look down at the parking lot, I could just make out her vague figure, shining in the grayish lights below. That was winter. But it always freezes again in spring. Then there was that Friday when Ashley caught hold of me at the yard. You leaving early with everyone else? What do you mean? Storm tonight. It's supposed to be freezing rain again. It was almost April. Jesus. I know, right? She turned away, my hand shot out and caught hold of her elbow. You want to ride the storm out at my place? There must have been something desperate in my voice, because she gave me a strange look, a sort of fear and confusion, mingled with concern. Are you doing okay, Tommy? She was a sweet girl, despite what people said. I'm fine. I was lying. I stepped close. I just want you. She looked down. She even blushed a little. Well, when you put it like that. Then sure. The rain came hard that night. I had the blinds open. Ashley and I drank rum and cokes, and then I peeled off her black mesh tights, exposing pale flesh to the harsh lights overhead. Can't you close the blinds? She laughed. It creeps me out. Someone could be out there watching. No one out there, I said. Not on a night like this. Then I rolled her over. That was how we spent the night. Ashley biting down on the pillow, sweat forming a faint sheen on the small of her back. Never seeing as Laurie stood crystal in the window, bearing silent witness till the rain faded out to snow outside. In the morning, there was drizzle in the woods, and when I came out to the kitchen, Ashley was staring blankly out the window while the percolator purred. She was wearing one of my t-shirts, oversized and black. Something interesting out there? She jumped. Oh, no. She laughed. Seeing the perk was done, she poured us coffee. I was just thinking about something. What's that? She shrugged. It's the first time I ever stayed over. It just feels weird. Well, I accepted the coffee. Not sure if I was supposed to invite her back. Last night was fun? Yeah. There was a moment's silence. Then suddenly she said, "Why don't you get out of here, Tommy?" What? This town, this house, it's not good for you. You're falling apart. I laughed. What, you want me to leave? Yes. She looked at me steadily. I like you a lot, maybe even more, but I want you to go. What the hell are you saying? She thought for a moment how to answer. A couple of emotions crossed her face. Then she put down her cup. I'm going to put my clothes on. Ashley, come on. But she was already past me. She dressed fast. Practice, I guess. Are you mad at me? What did I do wrong? I'm not mad at you. She turned around at the door and took hold of the back of my head with one hand and kissed me, hard, like she meant it. Her lips were puffy from the night before. I'll see you, Tommy. Then she left. I stood in the doorway, watching her car peel away. Then I turned back to the living room window. It was empty. Well, it was good advice. I dragged my feet for a few weeks, but ended up taking it. I moved out, went south. Folks up here were glad to see the back of me. Worked a few years at a mill, and then a landscaping company. Met someone and got married, and we raised a daughter for a few years, and then had a son of our own. 10 years later, when she left me, it came as a surprise. I don't understand, I said. I've never said a word to you in anger. I've never been unfaithful. She had. She'd never been faithful to me. We aren't in love, she shouted. We never were. Look, I'll admit I've made mistakes, but at least I've tried. You've never let me in, Tommy. You're frozen. And I guess she must have been right about that, because I couldn't even tell her she was wrong. And so I came back home, and 15 years had passed since Laura's death. First person I ran into was her cousin Aaron, in line at the Independent. Jesus, Tommy, is that you? He surprised me by wrapping me up in a bear hug. You look great. It wasn't quite true, but the years had been worse to him than me. We went for a pint at the new corporate bar where Red Tiger used to be. They'd found Laurie's remains in the woods that spring after I'd left. No sign of foul play, just caught in the whiteout. Could happen to anyone. He asked for my forgiveness for the hospital visit. I told him he'd been justified. We were older now, and found we understood each other. Our bodies were breaking down. His marriage was ending, and he didn't really know his kids. In the weeks after I moved back, we started hanging out again, like when we were young. He was working at the yard now, and got me a job there too. You ever think about her? He only asked me once. It was out back at the yard as the clouds came in. I didn't have to ask who he meant. Every time it snows, I said, and every time it rains. Then we smoked a cigarette and tried not to cry, and a few of the young guys working gave us looks across the yard. Two sad old men grown maudlin about the past. That winter, my old house went back on the market, and I bought it back from the son of the guy I'd first sold it to. They'd renovated about 10 years back, put in a fireplace. The house was decent now, and warm. That first night, after I moved back in, a whiteout came sweeping down from the north, and after midnight, the wind changed. A steady, freezing rain turned the world to glass. I was still up, of course, waiting in the darkness by the fire, when I felt a presence outside. She wasn't at the window, so I went to the door. When I opened it, she was standing right there. Lori, the crystal outline of her. After all those years, I was still afraid. "Come in," I said. "You must be freezing." She entered without a word, those cold feet ringing on the floorboards. "Place isn't like we remember, is it?" She said nothing. She wandered through in silence, looking at the home someone else had built where we'd once lived. The empty walls where no pictures hung. Then she went into the bedroom and sat at the end of the mattress, staring out into the living room, as I had, first night I'd seen her after her death. We sat for a long time before I said, "I'm sorry." She didn't accept the apology, or reject it, but after a minute she leaned into me, and I held her, the crystal outline of her, as she slowly melted away to nothing. And now it's winter again, and early storms rip through the town, turning the light to glass, silvering the pines, frosting the windows of Aaron's trailer and Michelle's big house beside the lake, and the small apartment in the new-built mid-rise by the station, where Ashley lives with her second husband and the kids. The sun's shining brightly now. I think I'll walk down to the apple orchards and see the fruit all shining silver on the boughs. I want to find one in its shell of ice before it rots. I think I'll save it in the icebox so it never melts. The Wrong Station is made possible with the generous support of our listeners on Patreon. Join us today at patreon.com/thewrongstation for bonus episodes, behind-the-scenes content, ad-free listening, and additional goodies celebrating our decade of dread. This week's episode, Ghost Apples, was written by Alexander Saxton and performed by Anthony Botelho. Thank you to Natasha Bruce, Joshua Messick, Jeb Powell, Will, Dana, Lucas Hocko, Razik, Slam Darius, Dog piloting a Predator drone, Jed Kesey, Jason Maki, Mandolin, Laura Alger, Dragon Chaser, and Mason Broderick for helping us keep the lights, well, off. The Wrong Station is co-produced by Alexander Saxton, Anthony Botelho, and Jacob Duarte Spiel, with music composed and performed by Alon Citrin, and arranged for the viola and performed by Viola Schmid. You can follow us on social media at The Wrong Station, or email us at thewrongstation@gmail.com. And until next time, thank you for listening.